Okay, we'll get started then. I'd like to welcome everybody here tonight. We seem to have a good few on at the moment. Hopefully a few more people will manage to get on as we go along. I'll just introduce myself because I wasn't on the last presentation that was given to incoming first year students. So my name is Ida Morrow and I'm the acting principal in Grafene at the moment, and I'll be returning back to my deputy principal role in September, as Mr. Kelly will be taken back over as principal of the school, and I believe that you've all encountered him briefly in the last presentation as well. Tonight we have a few people who will speak. So we have our IT person, and she'll act as first year head for a while at the beginning of the year at least, and that is Charlotte Kinsella, and you may have met her as well in the last presentation. We also have Colleen Fitzgerald Ahern. So Colleen works in our SEN department, and she'll talk a little bit about some of the AEM provisions for our students. And we also have Ronan Ward here, and he has been in contact with a lot of parents over the last few weeks. So some of you may have already been speaking to him, especially around the area of AEN, SEN. So I think maybe we'll just go ahead. We'll try and not keep you here too long tonight. We do have a lot of things that we are going to discuss tonight, but we're recording the session, so just to make you aware of that as well, that it is being recorded in case you've any objection to being online while it's being recorded. But we'll put the recording on the website afterwards, so it will be available for you to look back at afterwards. And we'll also put the presentation up as a link on the website as well, so you'll be able to go through it in your own pace afterwards. So I'm going to hand over briefly just to Mr. Kelly first, if he'd like to say a few words.
Okay, good evening everybody, and yes, thanks very much, Adele. I'd like to thank Miss Morrow for getting us here this evening and for all the work that herself and Colleen has done in terms of the leadership of Grafene over the last few months and weeks, in terms of getting our first years ready for the transition across to Grafene Community College. I'd like to thank Charlotte for all the work that she's done in the background in relation to keeping all the IT items moving and moving efficiently. And I believe that Mr. Ward, Ronan, who's also here on tonight's presentation, that Ronan has spoken to a couple of the parents as well over the last few days. And as Colleen says, it is great to put a face with the name. We look forward to having your son and daughter come to us in Grafene Community College, and as a leadership team, we look forward to guiding them through, I suppose, first of all, the first 3 years of junior cycle and then on into senior cycle. And we have a great curriculum developed and planned as your son and daughter progress through Grafene Community College. Before we move on with the presentation, I would like to say that the motto of Grafene is to learn with pride and progress with confidence, and we really enshrine that into everything we do in all our lessons. And I think I took Miss Kinsella's thunder there, because she was to say that, and I'm sure Miss Kinsella will cover that in a lot more detail in this presentation. But really, learn with pride and progress with confidence is something that we really live by in Grafene Community College. And before I hand you over to the first speaker, I would like to thank you, the parents and the guardians, for selecting Grafene Community College and entrusting us with the education of your son and daughter on into the future. So thanks very much, and I will speak to you again in a few moments. So I'll hand you back to Miss Morrow now.
Okay, so as Mr. Kelly said there, he's just stolen Miss Kinsella's thunder, so we'll hand over to Miss Kinsella and she can start.
Thanks, Adele. Thanks, Noel. So as you can see, consistency actually is a big part of our school. As Mr. Kelly says, we all think on the one hat there, and learn with pride and progressive confidence. It's something that we enact in our school daily. I think it's very important that when they come, we're going to go through school structures today, and it'll be slightly different from primary school, but there'll be a lot of support in there as well for your sons or daughters who are coming to our school, which is now going to be one of their large families and their extended families, because they act together as a class group. So they'll be starting a little bit earlier in the August. They'll have a day in school on their own, so that's to get used to the layout before they get crowded with other year groups who come into the school with them. And we think that's a very important time from a transition, because as soon as they enter the doors of our school, we'll be there to guide them. There'll be staff, they'll get to meet some of the staff one-on-one, they'll get to meet their tutors and get used to a routine of entering and exiting the building before everybody else comes in on top of them. In our school support, now quite similar to primary school, you will have your principal and the deputy principal, and we're very fortunate to have them here with us. So that's Miss Morrow and Mr. Kelly. You'll have a year head system where they will work with the tutors. The tutors is like your son or daughter's class teacher at the minute. So the tutor in our school will meet them every single morning, and during the tutor time, they'll be checking in on how they're doing in school. They'll be checking for any notes in their journal from parents or guardians. They'll be linking in to see how they're getting on in their subjects. So they're there as a guide and to help the students in school should they have any problems. Class teachers then relates to different subjects. So in secondary school, they'll transition from one subject to another, and they won't have the same class teacher for every single subject. So that is something that they will have to get used to. They actually adapt to it very, very well. In our school, then we have the guidance counsellor, who's Miss Ward. She's excellent. She's there on hand. She helps with any of the anxiety sometimes if there's bigger worries and that can be a referral from the year head or from the tutor or from the senior management team in the school. Then we have the SEN team, and we're very fortunate to have a great background team there. You've already been talking to Mr. Ward. Miss Fitzgerald is here with us as well, and then Miss O'Hanlon will be with us in the next meeting when you see her. They provide a lot of background support, so that can be observations with the students, and Miss Fitzgerald's going to go through some of the outcomes and what we look for to help guide the students in a few minutes.
Okay, so we're going to hand over to Miss Fitzgerald now, and she's going to talk a little bit about that.
Hi everybody, thanks for coming tonight. Just the first thing in the title of the slide there, the testing for first year students. I know some schools in the area are kind of currently maybe doing it or planning to do it in the next couple of weeks, but us as a school have decided that we're going to run our testing, or I prefer to call it kind of more screening of our first year students in September, and we're going to leave it until late September to allow students to settle into Grafene Community College. So, you know, and then they'll be doing their testing and their screening on their iPad. We'll be running two main tests, and one will be the CAT4, the cognitive ability test, and the NGRT, which is the new group reading test. And they'll be done with particular classes over maybe the last week in September is when we've earmarked for that. But just to let you know, the classes are going to be mixed ability, and there'll be mixed ability coming into September based on lots of different data that we're getting kind of from the primary schools and from parents if we're talking to them, or from the primary schools when we meet them as well. But like, I suppose I'll just let you know that some classes might be subject to change, like very, you know, like in the first couple of weeks in September as the students settled. I suppose the SEN department, their SET department, special education team, it's made up of, as we said already, myself, Mr. Ward, and Miss Anne O'Hanlon, who's actually the SENCO, the special education needs coordinator, and she'll join us at the next meeting. I suppose the most important thing is from the testing then we'll be looking at the continuum support, which is the model here on the screen. And it's basically what support we will as a team offer to all students, then to some students that are there in the red fall into that category, or the support for few, there's some students that fall into that category. But the big thing to, I suppose, earmark is that we'll be starting off with a transition transfer program called Belonging Plus, and that will also allow us to identify students that might need a little bit of targeted support around organisation skills or people skills around kind of friendship groups and stuff like that, that they might need further support with. So we'll be keeping an eye out for that as well with our students during that transition stage. I suppose just let you know, with the SET model, it can be a little bit different in secondary schools, and we will be looking at kind of in-class support is probably the most preferred approach. But there will be some targeted support groups as well for a time frame period of time, and then in a very small few cases there will be withdrawals from class. But that's something that myself and Ronan and Anne will be talking to people individually about anyway. So I think that's probably enough for this evening, guys. I might pass you over there to Miss Kinsley again.
Sorry guys, that was just, I don't know, teams talking to us as well. Thanks, Colleen. So with the tutors, then it's very important that you maintain contact with them. Your son or daughter will be allocated a tutor. So if there is any notes, you can write them into a journal. If you wanted to leave an email for them, now they might not get back to you straight away because they're teaching all day long as well. So they're a friendly face for your child when they're coming into the school, and that's very important. So it's someone that they feel comfortable with. They can discuss any issues, both good and bad. They get to know all their strengths, which is brilliant, because having that one person that they meet every morning creates consistency. They're there to help them transition from primary to secondary school, and that can be, how do I use my journal? I can't get my locker open. So it gives them that person that they know they can go to each morning when things mightn't be going as smoothly as they had planned. Then they're used to monitor their journal, their uniform, and their iPad. And we're going to go a little bit through now in a second on their journal, their uniform, and the iPad, because it's very important that as parents and guardians at home that you're helping support them and guide them as well to make sure that they're able to come to school with everything that they need. So their journal is something that they need every single day with them. At the end of each week, we need a parent or guardian to sign the journal, and that's so that you know the homework has been completed. If there's any notes from teachers or any notes from their tutor in there, we're looking for you to help guide them with their timetable. So at the first couple of weeks, it'll be a bit of getting used to. So to take their timetable out in the afternoon, checking to make sure they've got all the material that they need for the next day. So whether that's putting on their PE uniform, whether that's woodwork and they need to bring in some of the materials from it. Absent notes then can be recorded in there, or if they need to be collected from school for an appointment at any stage as well. So the tutor will check that in the morning and then we'll record it on VSware.
Now, Mr. Kelly's going to come back in and talk a little bit about the subject options that you may all be familiar with.
Okay, so thanks very much, Ms. Morrow. So in terms of the subject options, as you know, we opened them up for selection and students had to select from, in consultation with their parents, from 1 to 7, a variety of subjects. And the subjects were music, woodwork, business studies, and so on. So there was a number of subjects. What happened and what... Okay. What happened is we've run the subjects now, run the options, and in terms of running the options, an extremely low number of students selected music and technical graphics, and therefore, based on that, we will not be in a position to run music or technical graphics for the junior certificate. But that doesn't mean that we won't offer it again for the Leaving certificate. But what we would say, and what's fantastic, is that all of the students, every single one of the students who selected options, got at least their first or second choice, which is a great achievement for 120 students to be able to get their first or second choice. Now, some students got their first and second choice. Some students got their first and third. Some got their second and third. Some got their second and fourth. But the main thing is nearly every single student in the school got their first and second choice, which is a great achievement. And we will be, as it says here, the option letters will be sent in the post to parents and guardians on the 1st of June. So they'll go into the post on the 1st of June. When you receive that letter to your home, you should just, I suppose, check what options they got. And then based on that, and I suppose it will be spoken about at some stage during this presentation, you can order the books then so you'll be able to go back in to the store and order the book that's relevant to the option that your son or daughter got. One other thing in relation to options, on the option sheet that you get, it'll have a breakdown of the options, but it'll also have a breakdown of the fees that a parent has already paid to the school to date. And I suppose I'll get an opportunity to speak about that again in a while. Thanks, Ms. Morrow.
Now we're going to pass back to Ms. Kinsley again.
So these are just a few tips that our current first years find very helpful for them when they're organising themselves in school. The little mesh A4 Polly Pockets is usually used by students where they'll pick, say, for example, the red one, and they'll put everything to do with woodwork into the red one. They might choose a blue one then for English and everything to do with English into the blue one. So when they go to their lockers, they can just pull out the relevant folder instead of going searching for all the different books, and that really helps organisation. With their lockers as well, they'll go to them in the morning and the evening, so they get time to put things in and out of the lockers. But it's very important also that they leave their mobile phones in their lockers in the morning switched off. We are a school that complies with no mobile phones, so this is for child protection and for GDPR. If they need to make a phone call home, they can mention it to their tutor, and they can make a phone call through the office, but they aren't to have their mobile phones in them. They need to be left inside their lockers each day as well. We're recommending as well that a timetable be printed out and placed on their wall at home, on the fridge or the bedroom door. So when they're getting supplies at home, they'll know, for example, on a Monday where it's painted in maybe blue, it's for their paints for art. On Tuesday, they could have it coloured in a yellow, and that could be their set for construction studies. So that just helps with the organisation and making it easier for them every single day, having different options available to them. In our school, then, the other item that they need to bring every single day with them is their iPad. It's a one-to-one device, so it's personal to them. It has a managed ID, and the reason behind this is it stops them entering onto any sites that they shouldn't have access to. It helps them also with GDPR and child protection. It also allows us to send and push out apps and that to their devices as well. They have access to the worldwide education resources. So, for example, if they're in geography class, they can have access straight away to the news that's occurring, maybe if an earthquake occurred in Japan. It's active learning, so you'll see loads of things. If you look at our school Twitter or Facebook, they're constantly taking photographs, making videos and content, creating music on the iPad, and it's an amazing tool for them to have. It's not just a book reader in our school. So in this image here are some examples of the students. In the centre image, actually, they were very lucky. They were selected as one of the schools to go to head office, and they worked with Swords Community College, and they did workshops on creativity, on design, graphics on the iPad, and to work together for teamwork. In the bottom corner, you can see them having images to describe things. Back during COVID times, that was an English class where they had to dress up as people from the novel. So there are loads of ways to interact, and it's great for students of all different learning styles, because someone who might be kinesthetic and different methods, they can adapt to those, and the iPad is an excellent tool for helping them with those. It's students' responsibility. So they come into second year, and each night they need to make sure that the iPad is fully charged. It's not that they will be using the iPad in every single class. They could go to English today and they could be reading the novel. But some days the iPad will use a lot more battery, depending if they're doing things like CBAs. It needs to make sure it has the protective case, because that helps if they happen to drop it, etc. So it protects the iPad for you. The school screensaver, which they'll be given when they start. So that's if a student leaves an iPad, we'll say in the woodwork room, we know who it belongs to and it's returned to them straight away. If there's no screensaver on it, it's harder to get the device back to them and find who actually owns the device. If anything happens to the iPad, you'll find maybe that they try to hide it from you. You mightn't see it. And that's where you need to check with them, because you need to make sure that it's not getting damaged, that theft, that they haven't left it behind somewhere. So they need to tell someone as soon as they realise that happens. If there's any issues, you might have taken out insurance. It could be covered on your home insurance. And you can contact Regal straight away with any of those issues. In our school, then, when they're not used, we use a policy called face down and the apple up. So the iPad stays down and the apple faces up for the students. So that makes sure that it's not a distraction to them if, for example, they're reading their novel in English as well. And with the school uniform, so this was done in consultation with our Parents and Guardians Board. It was done in consultation also with our students, because we like a student voice, and with the teachers of our school. So the boys and the girls are quite similar. They have a navy crested uniform, and that's for the junior part of the school. So that's first to third years. They'll have a pale blue shirt, and navy trousers can be worn for boys and girls. They have a GCC jacket, so they've got the option of a hard or a soft shell as well. They have the GCC school tie, which is striped, and they have black or navy socks. Then with the school shoes, you need to be very careful, because some of the shops are actually selling some of the shoes and telling you they're runners, and the shops are trying to sell them and are telling you that these are school shoes. This actually links in with our anti-bullying policy. So I'm going to show you a few images now of examples of this and where it works in our school. So the school uniform there is a navy jumper, and here you have the girls' skirt and the two options of jackets. So one's a soft shell and one's a hard shell as well. On the left then there are examples of some of the shoes that are acceptable. The ones on the right are the ones that cause a lot of issues. So you have things like they're not covered by insurance with the plimsoll runners. There are, for our anti-bully strategy, you can see in the image here that there might be children with the Adidas logos and stuff like that on the runners as well. So the shoes, make sure in the shops that they're polishable shoes that they're selling to you. They will try to sell the runners. I've had it this year where some students have come in, they're like, oh, we thought they were shoes. But as I say to them, sometimes, is that something that you'd wear with a suit if you're going to a wedding? And they're like, okay, that makes more sense. So just be careful that you're not going purchasing runners which are costing €100. If you go to Tesco's, Pennies, you can get a pair for about 25. Then this year we're very lucky. The Students' Voice, they spoke up about the school tracksuit, and we've gone for a skinnier pair of trousers and a lighter, quicker drying material. It's also navy as well, so it doesn't show the dirt. And there'll be a school crest on this as well. There is the option this year. So this is the compulsory tracksuit that has to be purchased. But there is the option if they want to purchase a pair of shorts as well with the PE tracksuit, and also a pair of leggings for the girls. Examples then again with footwear. So for PE, there was actually an insurance reason why some of them can't be worn. So the high, as I say to them, the high top Converse shoes, any of the little plimsoll things are going to fall off your feet. Any of the soles which really aren't bendable. So you're looking for athletic footwear to be worn for PE. And that's again to link back in with insurance reasons and linking in with the students of what they found was most comfortable for them when participating in PE. So in our school, you'll start to get used to it. A lot of our students, we love to get their voices and their opinions. So some of the opinions and some ideas that was shared by them that they found that worked for them. So using your journal to make sure you're writing down your homework, but also writing when it's due, because you might have geography on a Tuesday and you might have it again till a Friday. Staying positive, they said, maybe at the start you might be a little bit nervous, but everybody's been here and there are other people feeling like that. So don't be afraid to talk to each other and say hello. Keeping a timetable at home and in school, they said, is very helpful, because at night time, if they have forgotten something, they can look at the timetable to find out what it was. One of the students actually came up with a great idea that on their copy, for example, they said they were finding a lot of teachers and they couldn't remember names. So on their English copy, if they wrote Miss Lawler or Miss Hickey, whatever teacher they have, and that helped them remember who the teacher was the next day they seen them. And they said taking care of your belongings, because now when you go to secondary school, you're moving classrooms a lot more. And they said popping a name on the back of a school jacket or on the back of their jumper, because they're the things that they kind of take off, and to stop them getting lost or misplaced with somebody else's.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Kinsella. We'll be back to Ms. Kinsella in a while, but we're going to move over to Mr. Kelly now to talk about the fees and voluntary contribution.
Okay, so thanks again. So a letter was sent to all of our parents and uploaded to our website. And as you'll see, we're going to be going back to Adele now in a while, and she'll go through how useful our website is to parents in terms of keeping you informed on everything and also being able to pay. In terms of fees and contribution for the academic year 2022-2023, the Board of Management has agreed a voluntary contribution, which is €50 per child, and there's also fixed cost fee. Now, in terms of that, that would be a total of €100. A huge amount of our first-year parents have already paid, and really, I'd like to thank all of the parents and guardians who've already paid this, because this really does help make it easier to run trips and events and activities for your sons and daughters when it comes to it, because it brings down the significant high cost. Instead of asking you for a big amount of money at any one time, we ask you to subsidize towards a trip at other times. So if you go on to the next slide, we can see where the money goes. So in terms of the college journal, it's €10. Rental of a locker, so every single year students can get the opportunity or have the opportunity to rent a locker, and that's another €10. In terms of the personal accident insurance, that's €10. Now for that, it's 24-hour, 365-day insurance for your sons and daughters. And I'm sure Ms. Kinsella, as the current first year head, would vouch to say that for some parents, that accident insurance has come in quite invaluable. It was well worth €10 contribution from some of our parents, because if they slip, they trip, they fall, if they bang ahead or if something happens to them in the evening time at home or on the weekend, they're covered, and it covers an awful lot for you, and it's just a safety net, really. Postage, text, the school app, stationery, and testing. That comes from another €20. But in terms of the voluntary contribution is, as the word says, it's voluntary. But just so parents can see that the voluntary contribution is split down into two 25s. One 25 is a voluntary contribution towards trips that your sons and daughters may participate in. And the other €25 is a voluntary contribution towards events. So we have lots of celebration events in Gryphon, lots of awards events. For example, tomorrow or the next day or so, we have the sports day. Every now and again, we have an ice cream van that comes to the school. We would have afternoons where there's cake involved and awards and so on. So that's where your money is going. Just in case parents are wondering, can we have a breakdown of the €100? Well, there it is there, and it's also in our voluntary contribution policy, which is available on our website. So thanks very much, Miss Morrow.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kelly. So as Mr. Kelly referred to the website there, it is a very useful place to go and find lots of different pieces of information. You know, sometimes you're kind of thinking to yourself, oh, what do I do? Where do I find out that? Always check with the website first, because you know there's a lot there, and we do try to keep it up to date as much as possible. So I suppose I'm just going to point out a few things that you'll find on the home page of the website first. Up on the top of the screen in the center, you have our email address, the info at Gryphon, so you can send queries in there if you don't know who you're directly sending your query to. And that then can get passed on to the relevant person, or you've got the school phone number. Now, then to the right of that, there are a number of icons which will come in very useful. And one of them is for MIT. And this is the payment system where you would pay your fees. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later on, but I think that a lot of you probably are familiar with it already, that you may have already set up an account for your payment system. We also have Office 365 accounts for every student that joins the school, and they'll be able to use systems like the system that we're using right now, MS Teams. It gives them a Microsoft account for Outlook, for emails, and for Microsoft Word and PowerPoint and so on. So it's very useful in that if you want to get contact an individual teacher in the school, you can do that through your student's Outlook account or through their Teams account. You'll be able to find the teacher's email address that way. So that can be very useful for both the parents and the students. And then finally, the final part that I'm going to talk about is VSware. So VSware is a system that we use. It's a database we use for recording all of our information about our students. So that's the main home screen of the web page. And across the top there as well, you've got other tabs where you can just browse around and you'll see other pieces of information that may be relevant. So for example, under the Home tab, you've got links to some useful information. You've there the MIT payment, and there you'll find instructions there. There's the calendar for the current school year. We'll put the calendar for next year up there, and so on. Then under the Parents tab, it's another tab that probably as parents you're going to use quite a lot at the moment. Our first item, subtitle there is for the current incoming 22-23 students. So if you click into that link, you'll find lots of useful information. So you'll find, for example, the links to Wriggle, where you can purchase your iPad, and you'll find some letters that we've already sent out and some other relevant links in there. And then the underneath that you have parent information. That's where we would put information in general for all parents of the school. So you can just browse around on the website and familiarize yourselves with it. But there are just a few little things that you probably use most often on the website. I'm going to talk to you next about VSware. So everybody gets an account, a VSware account. All of the students get a VSware account, but parents will also have access to VSware and be able to create their own VSware account. And as I say, it's a database that we use, and students have their timetables, their attendance and personal details there. What we will do in September is we will send out a text message to all parents. And when you receive that text message, you'll be given a username and a password. And you can obviously change them once you've set up your account. But it is really, really important that you do that, because you're going to end up using that account for the next 5 or 6 years, as long as your child is in the school, to track things like their attendance and their school reports and so on. So I'm just going to show you a few little features that will be very useful. One of the most important things for the students themselves as they start in school is the timetable. And when they look at it initially, it might look a little bit confusing. It's going to look something like this, but their tutors will talk them through this when they start in September. Along the left-hand side of the screen there, you'll notice that there's the times of the day. So they're the times of all the lessons. All of the lessons then themselves are all color coded. So say, for example, science, there you can see it's that very bright blue, and maths is red, and so on. You have the teacher's name will be appearing on the timetable as well, and the classroom that they're in. There's one other piece of information there, and it's the code for the class. And that might look a little bit confusing to some students, but the reason for that is, say, for example, in first year, we might have 3 science classes, and it might be 1 science A, 1 science B, and 1 science C. So it's nothing to be too concerned about, but just in case your child is wondering what that actually means. Now, when you log on to your parent account for VSware, you'll see something like this. You'll have a parent dashboard, and you'll have a welcome and so on. And then in the center, you have your students. So for example, you may have more than 1 child in the school, so you can choose which child's profile you want to view on any given day. You'll also be able to see your contact details. So if you look at that and you kind of think to yourself, they're not the correct details, it's really important that you contact the school and let us know that. So you can contact, the best way is to send an email into the info@Graphene email address and update your contact details there. So if during the year you change anything, be it your phone number or your address or anything like that, it is really, really important that we have that information to make sure that you're getting all of the information that you need from the school, and we know where to find you. So when you then click into your student profile, so say, for example, you have 2 children in the school and you select Johnny, his profile will come up here, and you'll have all of these different sources of information. So some of them we don't use very much at all, and then others you will use probably quite a lot. So I'm going to look very briefly at 3 of them: the attendance, the assessment, and the timetable I've already looked at, but I'll show you what it looks like on your profile as a parent. So when you look at it on your profile as a parent, you'll see a screen like this. You'll have on the left-hand side of the screen, you can take a look at per week, or you could click and look at it per day, and it just looks slightly different when you do that. Or on the right-hand side of the screen, you have an option to print timetables. So, for example, in September, maybe when your child starts in school and you want to get a copy of the timetable and you want to pin it up for yourself maybe, or pin it up for them somewhere in their room, you'll be able to print off the timetable there for them and stick it up on the wall. And the other feature I'll just point out here, you'll notice across the top of the timetable, you have different dates. So you can go to different dates and select what the timetable looks at on those dates as well. The next thing that you may look at quite frequently is the attendance overview. So when you click in here, you're able to see how many days your child has been present, how many days they've been absent, or maybe if they were partially absent. So say, for example, they had to go way off for a dental appointment or so on. So you'll be able to keep track of all of that. You'll also be able to see at the top of the screen there, you've got 4 lates. That means your child was arrived to school late on 4 different occasions. And that's really important, because at the moment, for example, we have a system where if a student is missing arrives to school late 3 times in a row, they get a detention. So it's something that we really want to keep track of, you know, being on time and it is something that, you know, is important for parents to know about. If your child is late with a reason, it's also really, really important that you write a note in the journal or send in an email to the tutor so that we can keep track of that. And we'll record that on the system as well. And you'll notice then when you go into the student's profile that you'll be able to see what days were explained and what weren't explained. So there underneath the lates, you'll notice it says I think 6 unassigned absence or unexplained absences. So, you know, we need to have absolutely every absent explained. You may know that in advance sometimes, or you may need to tell us about it afterwards, but we'll always be chasing after that. Then also on the attendance overview, you can see even how many lessons that per subject a student has missed. So it might be a case, well, they miss every Tuesday, but then that means that their double English class falls on a Tuesday, you know, so it can mount up quite a lot there. But you get a lot of data there, a lot of statistics about their attendance. Now, when you click into the assessment tab, you've got 3 options there. One is a state CBA. So that has to do with the junior cycle, and they will do CBAs in every subject between 2nd and 3rd year. So in 1st year, it's not as significant for you as a parent. Your term assessments, so that would be, say, in November, we give November assessments, and then in the summer we'd have the summer assessments. You get your results and reports there, or when they're in 3rd year they might do mock exams, for example, and then class assessments, which we don't really use at the moment, but we might look into using that going forward. So when you click into the assessment, say for example you want to see your child's report for their November assessments, you can click in here, and on the right hand side of that screen you've got a button which says actions and download results, and you'll be able to download your child's results from that. And then there's also another screen where you can click into your personal info and check that that's right. And as I say, if it's not right, you need to contact the school and let us know as soon as possible. Now, going back, I'm just going to go back briefly to the payment system again that we mentioned earlier. There are 2 different ways that you can find links for it. There's the icon on the school website, or if you click on the Home tab, there's a sub-tab called MIT Payment, and in there you've got a lot of details and instructions as to how you would set up your account. So if you're having difficulty setting up your account, you might go there first to try and troubleshoot for some ideas. When you're creating your MIT account, you need to use the same email address that was used when you were filling in your application form for Graphene CC. So whatever email address you put on the application form for this year for your child coming into Graphene CC, that is the address that's linked to the MIT system. And I think that's a place where a lot of parents fall down in setting up the account, and a place where a lot of the problems start to emerge. So that's all I have to say there on that. And I'm going to hand you back now to Miss Kinsley again.
Thank you, Miss Morrow. So when we come together and we reflect on our previous year, we had some feedback from parents and guardians this year and things that they also found helpful. So they said checking the school journal and iPad regularly, and this is also making sure that maybe they're not taking any photos at home, etc., that shouldn't be on it. Checking the information on the school website. So as Miss Morrow says, it's currently and always update with relevant information. Also, if you missed out on any emails maybe that was sent home or that, there will be copies of all them on the school website as well in the tabs. They said any problems to contact the year head, class teacher or tutor straight away. They said that sometimes they might get back to you in that hour because they could be teaching, but they said communication is really important. They find that any problems that they think might have been minor, it stopped them becoming large. They said any issues was dealt with straight away. So communication is highly important in our school. And being positive, they said try not to worry about the transition. You might be nervous, especially if it's your first son or daughter entering into post-primary school. But they said sometimes those nerves can come across onto them and they're actually really, really excited. So it's a great opportunity for them entering into secondary school. Some of the questions you might ask your son or daughter when they return from school, and to get them talking, because I know how difficult it can be, ask them who they were sitting beside today. who they were talking to, what's the name of their teacher, have they joined any extracurricular activities, and we really encourage that in our school for extracurricular activities. We've running club, we've chess club that was started this year, which we had phenomenal people on a waiting list, and so we divided it up between year groups with that many people. We have soccer teams, we've basketball teams, we've environmental committees, student council, digital leaders, and they're just some of the examples. So we really encourage them to sign up. They'll make friends in other year groups, and it's really important for them because we think of them as our voice. We're the ones who are trying to show them a way, and they're the ones who share all their ideas with us. Give them a gentle nudge when you're listening to them. So sometimes they might say to you, oh, we did basketball or whatever in PE today. Give them a little nudge. Well, how was that? Did you enjoy that? Was it something different? And there are activities that they might not do in primary school, which will be different in secondary school. It's always worth a try and trying them. If you don't like them, you can stop them. We'd really encourage them to give this different activities a go. So what we say when you come to join us, that life is an open book full of blank pages, and now's your time to write the story as you go. So don't make any regrets coming in. Give it a go. Talk to that person, because that person beside them might be just as nervous as they are, and your son or daughter might be the one that encouraged them, and they could make a friend for life as well. On our next slide, we just want to give you an example of the culture in our school. We come from many different cultural backgrounds. I think this slide gives an excellent example of all the different cultures in our school. We'd really like to thank you for choosing Griffin Community College. We are delighted to see your son and daughter here in September and August, and we think that they will make a great outcome in our school and working together with the rest of our student body. Thank you very much for your time. I'll pass you back to Miss Morrow.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Kinsella. That was fantastic, and I'd really like to thank Ms. Kinsella for putting the bones of that presentation all together, and she's very well thought out. As I say, there's a lot to digest there, so this session has been recorded and we'll put it on the website from tomorrow along with the PowerPoint. So if it was a case that maybe you didn't get to see the entire presentation, or you lost your internet connection possibly partway through, you can go back and have a look at it in your own time. In the meantime, if you have any questions, you can contact us, and we will be in touch next week with subject options and with information about, say, for example, ebooks and so on, and we'll get back to you on a lot of that over the coming weeks. But I'd like to thank you all for coming here tonight and joining us. It's really great to see so many people online, and hopefully the next time we'll be seeing you in person. So I'm not sure if Mr. Kelly wants to come back in and have another word, final word.
Well, just to finish up, thanks very much. So the website is exceptionally useful, but something that we didn't mention in tonight's presentation, but you will find lots of information about it on a website, is the iPad, and also in relation to the bookstore, which you will get information on in the next few weeks as well. So don't forget to use the website. So the website is exceptionally useful. Anybody who needs to do any payments, don't forget to go to the MIT payment store. Miss Morrow already spoke about the options, so I won't repeat that again. So I just want to sum up everything. As I said at the beginning, I want to close with thank you very much for choosing Griffin Community College as the place where you would like to send your son or daughter on their journey through junior cycle, transition year, and on into Leave Insert. And finally, I'd like to thank Miss Kinsella, Mr. Ward, Miss Fitzgerald Ahern, and of course our acting principal, Miss Morrow, for everything that you've done over the last few months, and you will continue to do as deputy principal over the next few years. So good evening, everybody, and thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks a million. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.